And, you know, is it something that you'd be open to in future in terms of collaborations then? Would you, you know, you like working as part of a team and you'd like to, you know, develop networking, I suppose, with other filmmakers? Is that something you would all sort of go forward to do?
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's a big focus for me actually, because I've always made my shorts on my own, but that's never really been like, I think I mostly identify with the writing and the directing, and I've always worked with stop motion, but I think I really like to collaborate with people that actually are mainly practitioners of like the puppetry and the design and the art direction. And I think this graduate film was actually it was so close to being having a team of animators, but then I had to sort of lock it all away in my room and DIY. But in the future, now I'm out of education, I'd kind of like to get a crew together that would like to pursue funding for projects. So networking is definitely a focus for me.
Might sound obvious, but of course, if you want to do a big project, it's also more pleasant for everyone to be in a team and enjoy the stressful experience. And also you can do more together. So definitely meeting new people from animation and using each other's best skill is something I strive for, yes.
And with so with Meow or Never, just going back to yours, what inspired you to develop that story initially? Like, what was it just about that? I suppose the message, but what was it about that idea that just really ignited something in you and, you know, made you want to pursue it?
Well, I have like a huge affinity for cats, and that's where that started. I knew my main character had to be a cat. And also, I'm kind of this person that's quite existential in a sense. I'm always thinking, oh, is this the path for me? Where am I going in life? I don't know what I'm doing here. You know, all those kind of all-encompassing questions. So I was like, okay, how do I make a story out of that? And well, that's the basic gist of it. The main character, who's the cat, her name's Pucha, and she really wants to find the meaning of life, so she travels across the galaxy. And then I thought like about how, like, you know, the connections we make in this life are what pull us through like everything. And so I really wanted to make a story about friendship as well, and how like my friends mean everything to me, and the connections I make, you know, they matter most in this life. If you take everything away, it's just the connections that you build are what matters. So yeah, basically that's how it came about. And it developed for like 6 months. We had like 6 months of pre-production where I'd like do character designs, and I would work on script with my co-writer, Vanessa Rose. And then I'd storyboard it, and then I'd put it into an animatic form with my editor and would see if it was working. And yeah, that's kind of how it came about.
And then at what point did you think about the music and it? Just going back to the music, did you have an idea in your head at the start about the sort of feel of the music and the sort of emotion that you wanted it to evoke?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I roped in my composer, like Cora Miron, that's her name. She joined like very early on because she obviously, since it's a musical, she had to be part of the whole pre-production stage. And I myself, I'm a musician, so I play the ukulele, I play the guitar, so I would provide like lyrics, and we'd go back and forth. So she'd provide the melody, and then I'd be like, oh, we can add a word in here. And that's how the whole thing came about.
Fantastic. And Danielle, at what stage, I know you were producing it for a university course and part of that, but at what stage, you know, was this an idea that you always had in recent years in your head to develop? And then did the sort of university course that their sort of necessity just make you go forward with it?
I didn't have the story in mind. The story was developed because I had to make a film, and I was starting to be passionate about children's stories and fables. But I definitely have always had in my mind that world, that underwater world, because I don't know, since I was a child, I come from a seaside village. I've always liked drawing fish and sea scenery, and that's always been my favorite character to draw. And so I think all of the characters that was in the film, the octopus, the crab, the fish, they've always been part of me. I used to make comics about them as a kid. So of course I developed them more with the skill set I have now. But I think all that world has been part of me for a long time. Yes.
Great. It's fascinating just to hear that as well, because you bring your own personal experiences and a lot of the time childhood experiences to things that you do then in adulthood. So that's really lovely to hear. And George, what would you say was the biggest challenge for you with your film? And was there anything that you took away from it that you really thought was a learning curve, I suppose?
I think the biggest challenge was definitely writing the story, because even though it ended up a very simple story, it is by design. I'd say at least a year was just writing the scenario, and I'm sure you have experience of writing a story and it just inflates as opposed to really become anything that's understandable to anyone. And that was definitely the biggest challenge, because it was just so early for me that it was before I really understood as much as I do now about characters and writing stories. And I think, the biggest challenge was definitely understanding that less is more, and understanding who these people are in your story and what the point of it all is. And that was the big learning curve. On the other side of this project, I feel like I now understand I'd be much quicker at stripping away all the excess stuff. And I think it would probably take a lot less time to write a story. But that was easily the hardest part. I think even the lockdown animation was crazy, but felt a bit more same old. I'm just animating. That didn't feel outside the comfort zone, ironically.
Yes, ironically, I think during lockdown, whenever we were working or doing something like that, you felt that's what you could easily revert back to. I felt like that anyway, like everything else in the world was so uncertain and upside down, but you sort of knew what to do when it came to your work, or you sort of slotted into like, oh, we can still you can still operate, and there's some sort of normality amid everything.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.